Meeting of the Goffstown Board of Selectmen. If everyone would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Phil, I just want to thank you for sharing last week while I was away on a business trip. Appreciate it. Looks like I had a pretty busy meeting.
We did.
First order of business is we have 3 sets of minutes which to approve. The first one will be of July 19th.
Motion to accept.
We have a motion to accept. Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second.
Seconded by Selectman Pierce. Does anybody have any corrections? Anything that needs to be clarified? Not hearing any. All those in favor of accepting the minutes of July 19th, say aye.
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 That's 5-0. Okay, the next will be the meeting minutes of July 26th. Is there a motion to accept? Moved by Selectman Devanz. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Selectman Campusano. Any corrections? I believe there is one.
Yes.
Page number.
Page 3.
Page 3.
Second paragraph from the bottom. The middle line, which starts 2010 grant, is for
Yes.
Surratt Park.
Yes,
Delete the word correct
okay.
and make gates plural.
Oh, okay.
So the grant is for Surratt Park gates.
I misheard something.
Page 7. Fourth paragraph down, first line. It starts, he explained that the development plan was approved in 2008. Should be a period there. And then the last word on that line begins capital letter, capital F. Four-year projects.
So you're striking the rest?
Striking to be accomplished with. And page 9. The middle paragraph that starts with Rick said, the last line, it's not Chairman Von Ruden, he's the president
Oh, he's the president.
of the organization called Friends of the Rail Trail. And I'm done.
Any other corrections? Not hearing any. All those in favor of accepting the minutes of July 26th, please say aye.
Aye.
And I'm going to abstain, so I wasn't here. 4-0. And next is July 28th.
That's just one page.
Motion to accept.
And that was a non-public session?
Second,
No, you
both.
have a public
There was
section,
public and,
and then you
okay.
enter non-public. It's
Okay.
this page.
Second.
Okay. It's been motioned by Selectman Campusano, seconded by Selectman Devanza.
Yep.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Again, it's 4-0 with 1 abstention.
Well, you only had 4 present, so is one of the 4 an abstention? So,
Yeah, I wasn't here, so that's why I abstained.
401.
4-0-1, right. And that's that for minutes. All right, announcements, we have a couple, just bear with me.
one is in the TA report, I think?
Yeah, I have one. Goffstown Legion Baseball Post 16 won the state championship on Tuesday, July 27, 2010, and this was the first state championship won by the Goffstown Legion baseball team, and they're en route to Middletown, Connecticut for the regional tournament, so congratulations, gentlemen. And was there any other Announcements.
Well, I'm not sure if I want to put in the announcement in, but I just want to do a follow-up on the Maskey Lake and the milfoil. There was a meeting with the Maskey Lake Association, but first of all, the milfoil, on a scale of 1 to 10, the removal of it was probably a 13. What a fantastic job. The amount of boating, canoeing, and kayaking has just highly increased since then. The group didn't meet just to talk about it, and part of that process was the funding for that. Some of it came from the dam, some of it came from the state, some from the town, and obviously from the people around the Maskey Lake. The amount was $1,600 short, but then the Maskey Lake, people who lived around the lake got together, took donations, and covered the extra amount. And as a whole, though, in the Maskey Lake Association, it's just there for the, for the monitoring of the milfoil. That's the only purpose of the group. But overall, all of them wanted to express their thanks to the boards and people who voted to remove the milfoil, and it's just a fantastic job down there. They'll continue to monitor it, and then the state's part of that process, but just wanted to put that out there. One of those times that something went beyond expectations of how well it was handled.
Any other announcements? You have one?
Just that I did attend the graduation from the academy. It was 152nd class. It's the officer that we're going to be swearing in tonight. Just so that everybody's aware that they only have generally 3 of them a year, and the officers have to go through the academy unless they've gone through the academy and they've been in a prior agency before coming here. But he did graduate, and there were about, I think it was 80 graduates in the class.
All right.
Was that held at the Capitol Theater for the Arts? It's the first time, because they're usually held up at the Armory up in Concord, but this is the first time it's done at the Capitol Theater.
I have a couple myself. A couple of Saturdays ago, several selectmen met up at the rail trail at the Parks and Rec building. I don't know if you mentioned it last week, but I know there was, the 3 of us, and I'm not sure if you were at the other side, but it was a very large group of people that took advantage of the tours of the rail trail.
I think it was 120.
Yeah, so very successful. And from a personal perspective, I walked one portion of it, the one that was more towards the village to Magoo's. It was really a great walk, and it was nice, all the different people that were there chatting with them. It was a lot of fun. It then prompted me this past Saturday to say, okay, I want to try the other side. And so we started with good intentions, my family and I. We ended up kind of going down towards the river and going up a steep embankment, and it didn't work out that we reached the entire stretch of the rail trail, but we did make it to Shaw's and then walked back. And it's a really great resource. And I know it's kind of shameful for me to admit this, but I've heard about the rail trail for numerous years. People have talked to me about it. Obviously, we've gone through the process here at the Board of Selectmen, but I really never walked it, in its entirety, and I haven't done that yet. But I will say that it's a great thing for Goffstown. It's an awesome resource, and there's a lot of natural beauty that you can see from the rail trail, and even if you take some slight detours. So I would encourage our community members to take advantage of it and walk it. It really is truly phenomenal, and those folks who have put in a lot of sweat equity and their time and energy to make it to where it's at should be commended, and it was a great thing. I also, prior to that, I took Selectman Fournier and I went onto the former Barnard property, which the town purchased at last March vote. And I would also say that that is another piece of property which is it's a beautiful piece of property, and I know we talked about it at our level. We really should, as a board, walk it or take the opportunity to check it out, because it's another one of these wonders of Goffstown that it's beautiful. And I mentioned it before, where I think we need to come up with a game plan on what we want that place to look like when all is said and done. And it's a very, very attractive parcel. I think we're very fortunate. I'm glad we had the foresight to purchase it. And that was it for me. Any comments or anything?
One comment. We approved public sessions.
You approved the minutes, which were all,
Yes.
those were all non-public, were they not?
They were public. Don't we normally approve the non-public
We
as
do.
separate
I think
vote?
that's in.
That was,
Well, item one,
Special note on one, so you may
for
want to do
item
that
number one for
separately.
non-public. You go in.
okay, I can go back and do all of the non-public. We can do that later. No, I'll do it right now.
No, I think one of them we have to do a non-public.
Oh, one has to be, okay, approved in non-public.
So
Okay.
just, you might want to leave
We'll
that
wait
for
then.
now.
Last but not least, we got an email, Selectman Pearson I did today. I don't know if you checked your email or not, but Mike Hillhouse sent a note off to the library, and they're going to start to do the preparation for the library parking lot. And for those of you who don't know, the town purchased the property next to the library, and we're trying to do something on a, I wouldn't say temporarily, but trying to make it so that we can, have it as a parking lot in the interim, and that work will begin tomorrow. There are some timing issues with, I think, Continental Paving and some different things where they're going to try to, sneak it in, squeeze it in this week. So just wanted to let everybody know about that.
Continental paving?
I think I think it's Continental is coming into town.
They are.
Yeah.
That's what Carl had said last week.
Yeah.
I'm
So
just trying to get an idea. I thought this was a dirt parking
no,
lot.
it is.
Continental's
No.
not doing the parking
No,
lot.
they're not doing the
Other
parking lot,
things,
but
yeah.
and they're preparing, they have to go and prepare to put in a gravel parking lot, but town resources would ordinarily be next to Continental as they're doing some of the work. And because they're not here, they weren't here today, they're able to shift their resources. So while Continental is paving, the town is doing prep work for them to pave. But since they're not here yet, their resources are gonna go elsewhere, and that's where they're gonna go to the library to get that done. So I apologize I'm glad that you clarified that, Steve. All right. I do have a quick question. Is there anybody else, any other trustee that is coming? Okay, would you like to, we have it at 6:30. Does the board anticipate anybody else coming for this? Was it, it was scheduled for 6:30. We can keep to that time frame, or we could take you early. What would you like to do?
Just a second to get organized up there, and we're ready.
Can we do public, is there a public I just wanted something that's not related to cemetery.
Oh, come on up, yeah, sure. Jean, just come up, just state your name and you
Do I
can,
need to-
yeah, just to state your name and address and we'll,
I know who you are.
You know,
Yeah.
Okay, Jean Walker, 111 Garstone Road. It's for Garden Club, and we're just wondering about the signs that people have been putting up in the traffic circle up at Mass Road and New Boston Road. Is there any way that we can just have them put those signs in the two sections rather than right there where the garden is? Because we've
yeah,
tried.
I don't think that, do we per se?
Well,
Oh, you're
that's why
talking about the
I'm
ones where they
I
get a
don't-
town
I
permit?
don't know who,
Derek handles sign permits.
so, okay, so I speak to Derek.
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll,
Vacation this week.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, Catherine, or if you could
Right,
just let them
what
know.
she's talking about, the area that they put the plantings in, you want the signs out of the area where the
Yes,
plantings
just-
are.
Just during the planting season,
Right.
Yeah.
because we try to make that really look nice.
Right.
and-
Maybe we can have just a little diagram of that area and just designate where.
Here's where you can put
where you
them.
can put your
right.
sign.
Yeah, it just seems like all of a sudden the political signs have gone.
They have.
Well, the political
The
signs
political
aren't
signs
supposed to
should
be
not
there.
be there at all.
We don't
Political
do
signs are
that.
not allowed to be there. That's why I was confused, because if somebody puts up a sandwich board, let's just say for the musical or the
Right.
summer production,
Right.
Yeah.
they're coming in with a permit and they need to be told where to put it.
Right.
But if someone puts up a political sign, it shouldn't be there, and it can get pulled.
Can we just move them to those other areas?
They don't belong in any town,
Derek has to go and remove them.
right.
Okay,
And
I just
contacts them and
knew I
say-
was coming tonight, and I just wanted to bring that forth, because I wasn't sure exactly which
Yeah.
board to bring that to. Okay. Joan, are you okay? I'll grab you a chair. I'll get a chair for you. Oh, okay. Thank you.
All right. So you ready to,
I think so.
Hold on
Okay.
a second. Joan Knesny, 10 Westwood Drive, cemetery trustee.
how you guys doing?
obviously.
Doing good.
Good, thanks.
We have this slated for planning for cemetery expansion, but this is also an opportunity. We don't get a chance to speak to you all that often, so whether it's operation issues or anything, this would be a good time to have those discussions as well. So we'll turn it over to the cemetery trustees for the planning for the West Lawn expansion.
Okay. Where would you like us to begin? From the beginning?
Yeah. we have in our packet some information, the cost estimates, et cetera, but if you just wanna go back to maybe, where we are right now in terms of West Lawn capacity, why we built the crypt, and what are our plans, why are we expanding, and what, that type of thing.
I think we've already gone to CIP. We did a presentation there, and we're doing the expansion because, from West Lawn, mainly because it is filling up. Joan actually has the numbers, and even up to today, there were some more lots sold. And we know that we're not concerned about the Grassmere Cemetery, because that's more or less people that have even been in the family, and there's probably 30 or 40 sites left there. And that would definitely be fine for a long time, because
That's Hillside.
Hillside, the Hillside one, because,
So about 35?
yeah, 35, 40. I asked Jason, and he said somewhere between 35 and 40. So we know that that's definitely probably going to take care of itself. Very seldom, I think we have had, 2 burials there this year.
We
And-
haven't sold any lots there in
No.
2 years.
No, mainly they're family lots that have been there for years and years and years. And so that cemetery, we're really not that concerned, because when that fills up, there's no place to expand, and we're very happy with what's happening there. And we know at Shirley Hill, we roughly have 80 already marked out, and that seems, but West Lawn is the one that is filling up rapidly, and Joan can tell you pretty much how many.
Okay, well, this was originally brought to the DPW for CIP in 2007. I have an email stating that it was time we look into a cemetery architect. We had then, at that time, started to get, we were selling, in fact, I have some stats on what we were selling in 07 and 08. You kind of caught me off guard here, because you caught me before schedule, but I've got it. At West Lawn right now, we have between 50 and 60 plots available. In 2008, just to give you an idea of the availability, in 2008, we had sold, total lots we sold were 19. With 2 cremations, this is important, 2 cremations and 17 vaults. Last year, we sold 54 versus 19 year before, with 24 cremations and only the rest were vaults. So there's none available there was none that year at Hillside. West Lawn has been selling approximately 25 plots per year. We have roughly 50 to 55 lots. We sold 2 today, so I'm not sure. Unfortunately, death is something you can't have a concise figure on. We might not sell any for 1 whole month and then sell 12 the next month, so I'm going by yearly figures. Let's see, we currently have that many left. The big thing is, everybody is going to, seems like everybody's going to cremations. We had, let me see, we had, I think we had 29 cremations, and now we're up to 54. So the way our rules are stated is, for each vault, when I say we have 50 plots left, for each vault there can be 4 cremations per vault, per lot, or a vault and 4 cremations, because cremations only take up a small area. Right now, we have that 1.43 acres across the street. So give you availability of what that sells. If you base it on 22
Across the street from what?
the new extension, I'm sorry. When I say across the
The
street, I'm
current
referring to
cemetery field that everybody
current-
knows.
that's deeded to be used as the new extension whenever it gets approved. That is only 1.43 acres. However, in that 1.43 acres, we have a total of, I'm going by Garriver and Ward, who's the architect that was hired, the cemetery architect that was hired to do this. We have a total of 1,370 graves, and 314 cremations with 2 per plot. However, our rules say that we can have 4 per plot. So this comes to a total of, if you add up 2,740 in each vault, the number of vaults. There's 1,370 vaults. And if you put just 2 in each one, we have room for 4,110 people there. If you put what our rules say, which are 4 cremations to a plot, you would have 5,480. So that little area, due to the fact that years ago people weren't into cremations like they are now, that's why cemeteries are so full. And that comes to a total of 5,366 with the 4, or 4,110 that we will put in that 1.43 acres. That's what will be the number. And if you divide how many burials we have a year, it's an average. The average burials per year is between 44 and 50.
Okay.
So I think everybody in here will be
Long gone.
long gone.
Right, but one of the things that we were gonna, discuss was, well, for one, let me just give one little quick overview for those who are watching on television, and for the record, the cemetery trustees, they are independently elected, and they do not fall under the jurisdiction of the Board of Selectmen. They are charged by RSA to be responsible for the cemeteries, and that RSA also says that it is a town's obligation to provide cemeteries for the municipality. So I just want to let everybody know that, and I know that, Gene and I know, Joan, that you guys know this stuff like the back of your hand, but for those who are in the audience, they probably don't. So the Board of Selectmen doesn't dictate the cemetery policies, you do. And you have to follow very strict guidelines or rules, laws in the RSAs. So that being said, there is a partnership, again, for those who might not know, that the cemetery trustees do work with our Department of Public Works and kind of contract our employees out to fulfill a lot of the maintenance, burials, et cetera. And there is a chargeback that occurs from an accounting perspective. So I just wanted everybody to kind of know. Some people think, oh, it's a town deal. Yes, there are town DPW workers who maintain the cemeteries and who do the burials, et cetera, but it falls under the auspices of the cemetery trustees. So I just wanted to, probably should have done that in the beginning. Phil and David, you guys.
Yeah, I had a question. I didn't know if you allow cremains to be in a casket. Can cremains be buried with, in other words, if somebody passes?
There's no RSA against those, and we follow the RSAs right down to the
So
line.
it is permitted?
It can be.
Okay.
They wouldn't open a casket.
Oh, no.
You mean if two
No,
people had a death at the same time?
reason why I say that is just sometimes for people's planning, so that there's an understanding that if one person passes away and they have them cremated, that if they had the ashes, then when that person, if they were not going to be cremated, they were going to be in a casket, that those cremains of the other person that they had could be buried with them. That is permitted.
We've had that happen.
Yes,
Somebody
yes,
put the
yes.
cremains in.
Yes, I remember that
With
quite a
the-
few years ago.
Well, it's just recently
Oh,
happened
okay.
too. We did vote less than a year ago to have a vault, a small cremation vault used, because we found that with all the cremations, sometimes the cremations were too low, and when they
Glass
were digging,
containers.
when they had glass containers or ceramic containers,
Right.
and there was a chance that those could get
Right.
broken, and that
Makes
wouldn't be
sense.
too pleasant. So we did ask, they're under $100, anywhere from $50 to $100, but we did make it a rule that they had to have a cremation urn because of that fact.
Thank you.
There's no rule.
David, you had
No, I did.
comments or questions? There are a couple of things that the board has had some discussions about that I know kind of overlap, and that is, I'm just going to kind of go through them. In terms of the capacity, which you just talked about, it looks like the cemetery trustees are pretty well positioned for capacity for our cemeteries in Goffstown for a good time coming. And it looks to me, that it could be anywhere 75 to 100 years, based upon what you're saying. And let's just say that we back off on that, we say 50, just to play it, ultra conservative. One of the things that we've learned here is that, should we be looking at another parcel of land for a cemetery to allocate for cemetery use? And that segues into my next question. The parcel of land that we're talking about is where the cemetery field is right now, and that's where the new crypt was built, and it's been used as a practice facility for sports, for soccer and other sports. On the other side of it, of that wetland, there's at the corner of North Mast and Parsons, there's another parcel, and I just want to make sure that it's our understanding that land, the water table is too high to do burials. So really, although that it has been historically earmarked for cemetery use, from what I'm hearing, I just want to confirm it through you, that is not really practical due to the high water table. Is that what you're aware of?
That's definitely what we're aware of, because that does flood and we could not use it but we have had some conversation with Park and Rec that possibly they could use that for a little practice field.
Okay.
Basically, that whole field belongs to the town, deeded for only cemetery purposes.
Right.
And we had to have it surveyed before that was the first thing that had to be done before the architect would come in. And there was wetlands there, so we had to have it, that's all been
Right.
surveyed. So the crypt is right on the corner of where the surveying ends for us to build,
Right.
so to speak. So the 1.43 acres starts right where the crypt is, to the left of the crypt and over. On the other side, if you come up Parsons, there's a flat area there. We've even taken cars and parked parallel there, Jeannie and I,
Yeah.
just to see if there was room there. And they really don't play games there. They practice there. And if the town leveled the land there, there is room for a playing field there.
All right. And I think, that's the type of discussion, I know that it's been talked about at our level. If there was, that all being the case, we may have to go through a process. If it was originally, I think it was originally voted on way back for it to be used for a cemetery, and I don't know what the process is.
Deeded, right?
Is it-
It's deeded
Yeah.
only for cemetery use.
Okay.
I have a question.
So I guess the question remains is that if we did want to allow it for Parks and Recreation use, what process would we need to do in order to accomplish that?
I believe the same process that they've been using, because that piece that they're using now was also deeded
Right.
for cemetery, and we just granted the use to Park and Rec or the
Okay.
town to use. And I think it wouldn't be changed, it wouldn't be deeded as Park and Rec, but it would be with permission from the cemetery trustees or whatever to be used for recreation or
Okay.
Park and Rec.
Because it was and again, I wish Sue was here, I thought, and correct me if I'm wrong, I thought that she said that it wasn't deeded, it was when it was originally voted on.
No, we have the original deed. We don't have it in hand, but it's at the town hall.
Okay.
It is.
I'm gonna, if it's all right, just gonna double check
Yeah.
that. But Phil, you had something?
Yeah, I just had a question that you mentioned about leveling something. I guess the only, and I don't know, that area, I understand the water table is too high for traditional burials, but is it possible that down in the future, at some point, that it could be above-ground burials, like a mausoleum?
Especially for urns, a structure that holds urns.
There's going to be in the Griever and Ward's
Eventually.
layout here, if you'd like to look at it. There is a,
We have it there.
I have it amongst this mess here. There is a cremation area.
That's the one we just looked at.
Have you seen this?
Yeah, we've just
Oh,
seen
you've
that.
seen that, okay.
Okay, so
Well,
even,
You're talking a cremation garden that's in the
Yes.
Cremation
center?
garden, which is just basically a cremation area. But,
But
that,
that same concept on the,
other side,
at that area we're just talking about for potential athletic fields,
I can't see that for 50 or 100 years. I mean, that's just my,
Well, to go back to just something we were talking about a few minutes ago, that Jeannie was talking about, Shirley Hill is pinned, for example, for 80 lots right now, and then it goes all the way back, beyond that. It's double. It's probably bigger than the 1.43 acres that we're gonna
Okay, so in
use.
terms of capacity for Goffstown cemeteries, with the West Lawn expansion and with what property we already have at Shirley Hill, we should be, I guess from a planning perspective, it's our obligation, believe it or not, to look 25 and 50 years out.
And with the increase in cremations,
Yeah.
let's see, was it double? It was doubled.
we
Okay,
were trying to figure that. We were saying almost like between 75 and 100 years out, we figured.
okay,
We're a long
so
ways
we're
out.
safe.
Yeah, I think we're all safe.
Number of lots.
Right.
And depending on how big Goffstown gets, it could go down to 75, 50, 55 years, but, I mean, we don't know how big Goffstown will be 50 years from now, but
Bill, you had anything else? you
Well,
wanted?
the other thing too is, when, we mentioned about the expansion, just so that the board's aware of, you can't just expand because there's currently, you have the 80 plots there, you can't just expand, you have to, has to be fenced.
it has to be
Just so that
fenced.
the board's aware of that, it has to be fenced by statute, so there is a cost to that. You can't just expand it.
An initial cost.
Right, because they have to expand the fencing.
It's an RSA law that you can't
Right.
put a body in the cemetery without it being gated
Right.
and fenced.
So Phil's right, probably down the road, we would be having another expense, probably 10 years or more.
Right, I just
Right.
didn't want someday when you come in and you have an
To have to
expense for a
expand,
fence that,
You're right.
at Shirley Hill,
that-
that everybody,
But I'd
why?
say you're
I would
talking,
think that we'd probably want to put that in SIP 5 to 6 years, 7 years before we, thought that it would be.
Yeah, Nick.
Does it specify the type of fencing?
Sturdy.
sturdy.
You asked me the one question I don't have memorized.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't think it really does, because we had that discussion originally
I
when we did
don't
the.
think you can use a chain link, because we had talked about that at one
No, you
point.
can't.
And it has to be enclosed. It
Right.
can't be just the chain.
Fixed.
Right, it has to be fixed, because we had thought maybe that would look nice, but it can't be that.
It can't be one of those chains with the little
Right.
posts.
Mm.
It has to be something to keep people out.
And personally, what we're thinking now is have it match this side, and then maybe we step back up here, that have the green chain link, that.
And
on the-
black.
The black over,
Black, yeah.
the black, not the green, on the other sides,
Yeah.
which would eventually,
That would eliminate that wrought iron. We could delete that from the budget.
from the budget. We've been trying to look at the budget, to how we could,
And the only part that we'd keep the wrought iron would be to match the wrought iron in the front across the street. And then on the other 4 sides that need to be bound,
besides.
go with the chain link that would be kind of disguised in the trees. I would like to mention one thing I have here for stats, if you have a minute.
Sure.
That new extension, at today's price, which we're charging 500, we just raised it to $500 a plot. It hadn't been raised in several years.
That was my next question.
It has been raised. I'm sorry?
Yeah.
And you might want to go ahead of me.
No, that was my
Oh,
question
okay.
was, what are the price of plots,
Okay.
and is that current?
$500.
Yeah.
The total revenue for what they're going to professionally lay out in pins, Griever Ward is going, the plan calls for the road to be put in first. The road's got to be put in before they can pin it. Carl does not want to touch it because it's got to be within an inch. You can't pin.
He doesn't want to pin it.
He doesn't want to do the pinning or anything because he said, that's too technical. It's a very technical job. They come in and they do it in 2 days.
It's a surveying.
2 days
Yes.
and they're gone. It's a very delicate, they do 20,000 cemeteries annually. So they're very professional. They've flown out here and, Gene, I'm surprised at you.
I know, I never get those.
The total revenue at today's price for the 1370 graves, that would bring in, and the 314 cremation plots would bring in $984,700. At
We're in the wrong
today's
business.
price, $500, and right, that's
It's over
gonna
70 years.
Right.
that's going to go up.
But if everyone buys their plots now,
Now,
Right, because I
Two for
bought
one
my house at
discount.
$23,000 in 1972,
Right.
so I mean,
but it's never too early to plan these
No.
things.
No, but I did just want to make a point that there is revenue that will come from this, however small.
However small, in 75 years.
Yeah.
So,
Does anybody else have any questions that we could?
Any other questions? I just wanted to see how things are going, kind of, operationally, and, it is kind of a unique, setup in the sense that we have a cemetery foreman, DPW resources. It's kind of a shared type of thing, but are there any, issues or challenges that you want us to, kind of to be aware of?
No, we just want you to know that we didn't come forward here with this increase that, when we went to CIP, they thought we were coming in with this sudden increase, that it was originally 75,000. Carl wasn't here when they put in Shirley Hill. Nobody was here. So these cemeteries this has all come up since all of us have been here, Carl included. Nobody's ever built a cemetery since 1878 West Lawn, and I don't know how old yours is.
17.
And Shirley Hill was already there, so when he put that 75,000 in, it was a rough figure.
It was a place mark.
It was
Placement.
just to keep a spot, because when we did go to CIP, it kind of threw things off, because they said, now you're coming in here with a $230,000 presentation. But actually, now we have we know all the RSA requirements, because we've looked into them to build a cemetery. Before, there was no interest in looking into them. Now we have an interest of what's required. The gates, it has to be professionally pinned in today's market. The way they're doing it now, and the way they put the 80 in up at Shirley Hill, was they take coffee cans and they fill them with cement over at the town shed. And we're paying good help for that. And it's not exact. So if you were to go to Shirley Hill tomorrow and you wanted to buy a plot, there's 80 that are marked, but say there wasn't, they have to mark those off manually. And then they have to put the cans in, fill them, do it. So this is, for $25,000, I think it's going up because it's gone up. There was a 5% charge if it wasn't done by a certain length of time.
If I'm confused, I know somebody in the viewing audience might be confused. The purpose of the cans of cement is to properly mark the land that was purchased.
Right.
So 5, 10, 15 years from now, when it has to be used, it's easier to find.
Right, and if you,
And actually, they're not purchasing the land, they're purchasing.
the rights.
The right.
The
Rights.
interment rights.
Excuse me.
No, just to
Yeah.
clarify for people.
Thank
So, and that, and for what it's worth, there are people who may choose to be in a certain location, and they want to make sure that that's their final
That's
resting
exactly.
space.
And the pins are marked and numbered.
Right.
And then
So I guess the precision here is what you have highlighted is extremely important to the trustees.
Yeah, the CIP even
Right.
said that is probably the most important.
And plus, it also has to do with the overall the integrity and the appearance of the cemetery, because, if you're off a little bit, it visually, it would not
And it will also maximizes
maximizes the use, and that's a revenue source, et
Right.
cetera.
Right.
Is there any, I know, Nick, you had some of the preliminary costs.
With CIP.
Yeah, and actually, if you want to go first.
Well, I just had a quick question. When initially, to get the pinning done, the site needs to be leveled and roads laid out. Now, do the roads need to be completed, paved, or can they just be laid out?
We
No,
discussed.
the roads need to be laid out, but we were just discussing today, should we call Griever and Ward? We just today had a phone conversation about this to see whether they have to be paved or can they be just graveled.
Okay.
That was one thing we were gonna make a phone call to.
Is there any, some of this work, from what you're saying, and it makes sense intuitively, is that, you need professionals to do, and I'm not saying that DPW is not professional, because they are professional, but are there some things that DPW can do to drive the cost
We
down a
discussed
little
that,
bit?
didn't we, for the leveling?
Like the leveling piece, or maybe even putting in
Leveling in the road.
Putting in the roads.
And then obviously the pinning, I think it's been universally
They'll come in.
accepted that has to be done by, a cemetery professional.
I think it was decided that they could do the leveling and the roads. It
Okay.
would be very feasible.
The
And that
road
would-
has to be staked out with some degree of
Very
precision.
Very
precise.
precise.
That was my question. If the pinning is
Is based on the road.
based on the road, why aren't they doing both. I mean, one, I can understand one would say, here's our overall plan. Why wouldn't they be pinning out the road also?
Well, they're gonna have to work very close together on that.
Yeah, but the reason is when they put the road in,
Mhm.
where the road is going initially, when it's in, it could be off 2 feet.
Mhm.
It could be over 2 feet. When it comes down, because it's not complete, so they come in and that's a rough approximation of where it goes. Then these guys come in and they do the final. And then they do exactly where everything's, once that's marked out, now you know exactly where
So
everything's
I
at.
understand.
But if you
It's
put the
a-
road in the wrong spot, if you're off by
Well-
2, 3 feet, you could lose 100.
That's my thing.
No,
That's my
when I say you're off by 2 or 3 feet, on that, when you put the road in, if the finished road is going to be, let's say, 16 feet wide, they would probably go in and do all their the roughing and the grading and the graveling would be 20 feet. Because they're gonna go on the sides, and when everything is finished, because it's still rough, they're gonna come in and they're gonna finish
So
everything off.
it's a temporary construction road to facilitate the future survey of
Exactly.
the exact placement of the road and the exact placement of the
They'll get it as close as
the
they can,
vaults.
and I think with the GPS that we have, they'll get it closer than 2 feet. They may not be able to get it within the inch that is required, but
And I don't think that the plan calls for a plot to be that close to the road.
Exactly, right.
There's going to be a
Right.
grass area or whatever space.
And I guess that's what, I think the plots need to be within an inch. The road is most likely whatever's laid out on the plan, and I guess I was gonna say, I think we're gonna see an RFP pretty soon for a $70,000 to $80,000 piece of survey equipment that I would assume would be able to get us close as far as road standards are concerned.
They did do GPS, yeah.
Are there any other questions?
And I apologize. This just, when I look at the layout and I see, I understand we have the center would have the cremation. Are the other plots open to that? Or, in other words, when you look at a plot, that would handle how many caskets? I mean, I apologize.
1,380.
No, I mean, but.
Oh, each
for
one?
Each one. In other words, if I was to buy a plot,
Depending
how
on the
many are
symbol.
allowed in a plot? People,
Okay, if you-
caskets, I
There's
apologize.
a plot and there's a lot. Let me explain the
Okay.
difference to you, as you want to know from scratch.
Correct.
Okay. A plot, for example, I have a plot. In that plot has 6 lots.
Okay.
So when you buy a plot, you can buy a double plot, a single plot, or whatever. A lot holds 1 vault. So I have 6, so I have room for 6 vaults, or 4 cremains in each lot. So I basically could put 30 people if I wanted to put 6 vaults and the rest cremations. I could put 24 cremations and 6. So if you were going to buy for your family, or you and your wife, or you and your whoever, you wanted to buy a double plot,
Okay.
it would hold, you wanted to be in a vault, it would hold 2 vaults only. So each lot is based on a vault within a plot.
And a vault holds one.
One person.
One casket, okay. And when we go to the cremation, if I go backwards a little bit, that vault, which would be the size of 1 casket, we're allowed to put 4 cremation.
4 cremains.
And that's a choice that
People
make.
choose.
And if people were to choose to buy a vault and say, hey, that's a large space, and we would like 8 of us, that's not an option. That's not an option, because of what reason?
8, if they want to put
Put
8.
8 in the.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just
8
trying to.
cremains, you mean 8?
Yeah, I mean, not to,
No, just 8 instead of 4.
I mean, I'm just trying to figure out, I'm thinking that it's
I
just,
know.
I'm trying to understand this a little bit.
They put 8 instead of 4?
Well, we just completed a survey about 2 months ago for the whole state of New Hampshire from the New Hampshire Cemetery Association, and we had the largest number of vaults. I'm sorry, I take that back. A largest amount of cremations
in a vault.
per lot,
Largest.
which was 4.
That's what you
Most-
allow.
Most, that's what we allow.
Most of them are 2.
Most have 2.
Okay, I was just thinking from a standpoint of space and families and costs,
Right.
et cetera, or maybe some people like to be families together, I'm just.
The actual cemeteries of the future.
I'm trying to be sensitive with this, I apologize, but I'm trying to understand a large casket and then 4 cremation urns in that same space.
Actually, it's only 3.5 feet by 7 per lot.
Okay.
The future cemeteries of this century are building up. What they're doing is they're buying columbariums, which are these, you can buy rectangular ones, square ones, oval ones, and they're like, I don't know if you've ever been to the Veterans Cemetery in Bow. Somebody said yes, you've been there. They have the drawers, and you can buy them anywhere from 50 to 150 of these drawers, all in a very beautiful granite. They're expensive to buy. They're probably $75,000, and they hold probably 150. Each person's name is in. It used to be copper, but now it's bronze because of the price of copper. They're engraved on the front, and each person puts their cremains that way. And this way, in a spaced area of probably the length of your table, you've got 100 people going up. And
What is the word you used to describe that?
a columbarium.
Column. Like,
Columbarium. You're from Arizona. Are you from Arizona? So you're
Well,
familiar.
my family is.
Out there, they're very, very popular, and they're coming east. That's the cemetery of the future. Is Massachusetts is starting to.
That's why I asked, is the future of the plot that's got the high water table, could that
I know,
possibly be?
yeah.
And that's why we're
Decent.
going with the 21st century of pinning and not filling cement containers to be more exact and.
Okay.
And who knows, Bill, probably down the road, maybe 100 years from now.
Only reason why I said that, because you
Could
have
be
a
used.
deed that says it needs to be for cemetery purposes, so if you can't, the argument could be made, well, you can't use it because you can't put plots there, so we're gonna reserve that for the future down the road with it, that's why I said above ground. So it still would be for,
Yeah.
But
cemetery
we're not gonna
purposes.
choose to reserve, we would like it used by Park and Rec or someone that could use it, because it'd be,
They
in the
would,
meantime.
in the meantime.
Right.
For
They
the
were
next
notified.
50 years.
They have been notified.
they were
yeah.
notified 3 years ago, so
I
we
mean,
gave
and the
them.
reason why I say that, because if you have any heirs of who donated that land, who say, well, you're not using it for cemetery
Exactly.
purposes, you're using it for a field, no, we have it reserved for the future.
But the state requires the
Exactly.
wetlands rule that goes into effect over and above the, supersedes the cemeteries.
other-
which
So,
is-
right, you're right, Bill, we are reserving it for the use, but in the meantime, the same as we would.
Quick question. In the cremation garden plan, is that above ground?
Yes.
Yes,
Are those structures included
The
in
numbers.
this?
the columbarium,
Hmm.
there
Well,
are
it
none, no.
It looks
there are
like there'd
none.
be 4.
That would be something that
Down the road.
that we'd have to purchase and then sell, because you'd get revenue from them, of course.
So that increases the capacity even further.
It would increase, definitely.
So you've
There's
positioned
plenty
us
of
pretty well.
room for
Yeah.
that. No.
All right, any other questions? Gene and Joan, I just want to thank you so much for coming down tonight, and I know that it's an educational experience for all of us, and on behalf of the board, I just want to say how grateful we are to have you as cemetery trustees. I know that at that time when a loved one departs, I mean, it's a very emotional time, and I think our community should be comforted to know that we have cemetery trustees that are doing an outstanding job, planning for the future, take it extremely seriously and professionally, and I think you've positioned us extremely well, for the future. So we should all be very thankful for all the work you've put into this.
Thank you.
Quick question.
Thank you.
And this just goes on the tail of last week's discussion we had with rail trail and maintenance. As cemetery property expands, how are you set for resources as far as maintenance, all of those things that go along with keeping the cemeteries up?
Do you want to go there?
Absolutely.
That's what we're here. So I mean, obviously, it's probably going to be more resources that
Right,
are
it
going
would
to be
be more
needed.
resources.
We're right now only budgeted for 14 weeks for cemetery help,
Seasonal?
seasonal. Our cemetery goes 22 weeks. this has kind of been a little bit of a bone of contention, but it's, our reply has been that this is the way it's always been done. So we have to take, or Carl has to take, people off the town DPW workers, off the town help, to come into the cemetery when the college boys leave the second week of August, because our time is up. Our 14 weeks is up, but the cemetery is only halfway underway. We don't end till the fall cleanups, when everything's cleaned up and leaves are raked and the cemetery's closed up basically till winter. And we have another 8 to 10 weeks that we need help.
I mean, it just raises the question when you say, you know, the college boys or whatever, the summer help, but
That's what we have.
if employing perhaps the high school element, child who is responsible to do summer activities, I mean, we certainly hire high school kids to be lifeguards and they're doing responsible jobs. That job could extend for those individuals as well, because if you're doing grass cutting and, you know, and if they're doing it during the summer, that would extend into the fall. It's a situation, it's still temporary, it's a part-time job. They could still do it after school and on Saturdays, and
I've asked that question. It really isn't temporary. You have 3 cemeteries, and we have a sexton that has to stop. For example, he has a vacation during the summer. Most people want their vacations during the summer, so he takes a vacation, which he's totally entitled to. He has to burials. We 1 week, Memorial Day week. That week we had 2 come out of the crypt that wanted to be buried that week. We had 2 deaths. So the sexton was busy. We also had Manchester Memorial and other companies calling because they want their monuments up for the holiday. So that week for him, beside being a total rainout, and our machine broke down, the machine that we put in the budget last year and the year before that never quite made it through.
Lawn mowing.
Lawn mowing.
Thank you.
It's still broken.
It's still broken since Memorial Day. So we're always playing catch up. So they're really, to say we're part-time, we need more help to do the job rather than less. I mean, high school kids, if they were trained, would be very good, but they can't sell plots. They can't, they need, in other words, Jason Jordanis is a supervisor to these college students. And when he goes or takes a vacation day, he has somebody that's been working, a college student that's been working probably 2 to 3 summers, so they're pretty familiar with the routine. It's more than just cutting grass. There's rules that have to be adhered to. And
so is there a backup and someone in DPW who
We're not
backs
sure.
him up? Or not really?
We're not sure.
whoever they can take off the road work. Now with the roundabout coming and everything, it's,
Okay, so that has to be,
How many seasonal people are we talking?
We think maybe 3 or
well,
2.
counting Jason, there's 3, but there's 2.
2 seasonal?
There were 3
It's not so much how many is the amount of weeks, it just stops at
Soon.
14 weeks. And then we get people coming over from the town. One day it might be Johnny, and the next day it might be Bill, and they're unfamiliar with the routine. They're unfamiliar with the machines. The grass might be way down here, and it's all burnt. The grass might be, there's more to learn than you think when you get over to the
So
cemetery.
for the 14 weeks, though, that you have them, they're dedicated to cemetery.
Right,
most of the time.
unless there's an emergency and they're called to the town.
all right, I think we've kind of gotten some of these concerns, and if you want to, if there's anything additional, let us know. So that we'll have a dialogue with Carl, more specifically about some of these things. We do have an obligation as a community to maintain our cemeteries, and that has to be respected, and it's a difficult balancing act, I'm sure, and that's what Carl will say, but we just have to try to find out a little bit more of the specifics here.
I think because the town is increasing in size, we're having more deaths, which we have more burials every year.
Yeah.
They're increasing. And
Population is aging.
yes, right, that's what it is.
That's what it
So
is.
is it fair to say in these 14 weeks that you have, aside from Jason's planned vacations or, if he's ill
Well, it's
or
just
something.
occasional day that he.
Right, no, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
in those 14 weeks, you have him dedicated the whole time
To 3 cemeteries.
to 3, okay,
And in between, we're at the hands of the weather and
Right.
somebody dying.
right,
When somebody dies, that throws everything off.
gotcha. Okay. All right, I just
All
want to
right.
again, thank you so much.
Thank you for
Okay,
having
thank
us.
you.
For a great job.
Thanks.
All right, at 7 o'clock, we have a planned oath of office for a new patrolman. And I think rather than taking on any new business, we'll just, if you gentlemen, ladies want to take a quick break, we'll reconvene at 7 for the oath. All right?
Okay, if you want to pay attention to the signature folders, that would be good.
Yeah, that'll keep her happy.
Mm-hmm.
Got all the signatures.
Thank you.
Phil, would you like the honor of swearing in the new officer? We lost him.
I looked for him on this level, but I didn't.
Okay.
There he is.
Guest of honor. Whenever you're ready, Mike.
Rob, is that everybody in there?
I think we normally get up and go to.
Yeah, we'll stand up as soon as he.
Very quiet for a second. That's unusual,
Oh, huh?
you know.
Because the chief's not here. I just want to thank the board for allowing this opportunity to have the ceremony to swear in our newest officer. At this point, I'd like to introduce to you, Tom, if you want to come up here. This is Tom DeFosis, our newest officer. He grew up in Terryville, Connecticut. 2001, he attended the Center for Culinary Arts in Cromwell, Connecticut. In 2002, he married his wife, Teresa. 2004, his daughter, Kira, was born. In 2007, they moved to New Hampshire, and as of recent, he graduated Friday evening of the 152nd New Hampshire Police Academy. Tom DeFosis. And Tom, is there anybody, friends, guests, that you'd like to introduce this evening?
Absolutely. I'd like to introduce first my wife, Teresa, for letting me pursue my dream. It's been a long time hope of mine to become a police officer, and once I moved to New Hampshire, we first lived in Goffstown, and I knew that I wanted to become a police officer here. It's a great little town. I love the community. It's got a great feel to it, so it's been a long wait, but I finally found the right place to do it. So thank you. And my daughter Kira, say hi. And my parents, Linda and Kevin. And they've all been supportive, so what more can I ask for?
Kira, how do you spell your name?
Kyra.
Good.
All right, then without further ado, I'm going to ask Selectman Devanza to have the honor of conducting the oath of office.
Okay, Tom, we meet again.
We do.
What I'm gonna do is give you a copy of this.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna go through this, and then down here is where the oath of office, where it has I. When we get to that, you're gonna repeat after me, and that, say your name, even though it's blank, and after the oath, then you can fill it in.
Sounds good.
Okay? So basically, whereas there is a vacancy in the office of police officer in the town of Goffstown Police Department, and whereas we, the subscribers, have confidence in your ability and integrity to perform the duties of said office, we do hereby appoint you, the said Thomas DeFosis, a police officer of the said town, and upon your taking the oath of office and having this appointment and the certificate of said oath of office recorded by the town clerk, you shall have the powers, perform the duties, and be subject to the liabilities of such office until another person shall be chosen and sworn, qualified and sworn in your stead. Now you raise your right hand. I,
I,
Tom DeFosis,
Tom DeFosis,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge and perform
discharge and perform
all the duties incumbent on me
all the duties incumbent upon me
as a police officer
as a police officer
according to the best of my abilities,
according to the best of my abilities,
agreeably to the United States Constitution,
agreeable to the United States Constitution,
rules and regulations of the Constitution,
rules and regulations of the Constitution,
and laws of the state of New Hampshire,
and laws of the state of New Hampshire,
and the ordinances of the town of Goffstown.
and the ordinances of the town of Goffstown.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Framed properly, and it's gonna be a cross pen, right?
Yes, it does.
Now, Kira, have you practiced over the weekend? Good.
Now, Phil, if I'm not mistaken, I think as part of your resume, you're a culinary graduate? Is that true? No, I say that because at my years on the board of selectmen, and I know that the firefighter brethren will probably hate me for saying this, but the police department has clearly outshined the fire department in culinary expertise. And this is what they've demonstrated to the board. They may have other skills, but they have not proven them. So it looks like we have another head chef here who's going to heighten that.
Kick it up a notch.
Exactly. So.
Great.
Take my word for it.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I'm sure I'll be getting emails from the fire department.
One of these will come back to you, but first the town
Okay.
has to put their seal and stuff on it.
Very good.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Did you want to have somebody pin your badge on for you?
Thank you. Yes, my daughter Kira's gonna help me with that. You ready?
Sure.
All right, here we go. Now let's see if we can get the second one. There we go. Okay, I'll hold it down. Push it over.
Great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Thank you very much.
Now it's time for bravery also, I thought.
Absolutely. That's trust right there. And if you'd all like to join us for refreshments over there, we have some refreshments right across the hallway.
Actually, my list would just move back to Attorney Kid.
Did you just say?
Want to go get something to eat now? Something to drink?
Resuming the Board of Selectmen's meeting, thank you for your patience. The board just had a reception for our newest police officer, Patrolman Tom DeFossis. DeFossis, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Tough with these names. So we're going to go to Town Administrator's Report. Janice, thank you. You are subbing for Sue, who's on vacation, I assume.
That's right. That's correct.
All right.
Assistant Town Administrator.
Assistant Town Administrator,
And Finance
affectionately
Director.
known as Al Egg. No.
Yes, he passed away.
That's right, he did. Forgot about that.
Yeah, so.
What? I'm in charge, right? Didn't he say that?
Well, good evening. The first thing I guess I want to point out is on your weekly meeting schedule, the Thursday 7 o'clock CIP deliberative session scheduled for this week has been canceled,
Okay.
and that's rescheduled till next week, the 12th.
It's not rescheduled.
No,
Oh,
we're
they
done.
just don't need that session, and they're going
Okay.
ahead on their regular one.
Right, we're completed.
And I guess today we posted a meeting, which did not have a chance to get in your packets, obviously, for the Solid Waste Committee. We'll be meeting on Wednesday at 7 o'clock at the Public Works facility, or here, Dave?
Public Works.
Okay.
I'm normally the representative attending that. I'm on vacation that day, out of state. The item on the agenda is to review the Concord Co-op contract document. And then, so that's the only thing on the agenda. And I have an opportunity to provide some comments, and that's it.
Okay. So you don't, there's a need,
I-
there's not really no need for.
There's no need for anybody to go.
Okay.
And that's it, we're all set on the meeting schedule. The next item on the administrator's report is the consensus folder, the AP warrants. We have a drainage easement, a right to inter, and an event permit application. We need a motion to accept the consensus folder.
Motion to accept the consensus folder.
Second.
Okay, seconded by Selectman Devanza. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
5-0.
Next item is correspondence. There is a letter from Andy Carteret, and we are still awaiting a response from LGC and Attorney Drescher regarding Glen Lake. I'm presuming that that letter is in the...
Yeah,
The letter was put into your mailbox this afternoon.
That's this one, and
Yes.
it's pretty short. I'll just read it into the record. Dear Goffstown Board of Selectmen, the PRLAC, which is the Piscataquag River Local Advisory Committee, is a volunteer river advocacy group pursuant to RSA 483 and the appointment of the Piscataquag River as a designated river under that RSA. The committee discussed the subject topic at its July 19th meeting and wants to provide the following perspective to the public record of discussion. Per the river management plan developed by the PRLAC and adopted by the Goffstown Planning Board in 2000, recreational access by the general public is to be encouraged to promote awareness and appreciation of the river. Toward that end, the PRLAC urges the Board of Selectmen to adopt an inclusive policy as to the use of Glen Lake Beach. We understand and endorse the need for reasonable and appropriate rules and regulations that protect public health and promote safe use of the facility. Striking a balance between those two objectives is not always easy, but we urge you to maximize the inclusiveness, and that's underlined, of any policies adopted that maximize, also underlined, the accessibility of Glen Lake, in parentheses, Piscataquag River, to the general public while being consistent with the reasonable health and safety guidelines. Respectfully yours, Andrew Carteret, who is the Goffstown representative to the Piscataquag River Local Advisory Committee. Yes, Nick.
While we're on this subject, we also, I don't know if anyone else received an email. I received an email.
A gentleman who does
Triathlon?
Yes, can I read that?
Yep, want to read that into the record.
Dear Selectman Campusano, I am a non-resident user of Glen Lake and have been following the recent articles in the Goffstown News regarding restricting access to residents only. I am a member of the Trinalts Triathlon Club, and many of us swim at Glen Lake in the early part of the day, as it is a central location while traveling to work for Concord and Manchester residents. After our swim, we typically spend time picking up trash in the parking and beach area. I hope in your deliberations you consider the option for non-resident permits or some other concession for responsible citizens that contribute to the upkeep of the area. It would be an immense loss for our organization to lose the ability to utilize Glen Lake for swim training. Regards, Jason Massa.
I've seen that group. It's over a dozen people there very early in the morning, or 6:30 to 7 o'clock.
All right. Anything else? And
Yeah, the last item that I have on the TIA report is with regards to the clock tower project. There is a memo in your packet regarding the issue before the board tonight, and I am requesting that the board approve an upgrade to the balustrade system that was proposed in the original contract. It will increase the cost of the project by $4,722, bringing the total cost of the project to $16,682 from the original proposal of $11,960. This is still well below the next lowest proposal that we received, which was $29,660. And in large part, this is due to the fact that the balustrade system that was proposed by the contractor, in my opinion, would not be sufficient. It would not be sufficient in size as compared to the size of our building. They were provided plans, but there was some misinterpretation on the plan. You may not be aware, or you may be aware of the fact that about a week and a half ago, the fire department came over one morning early at about 6 o'clock in the morning and removed the existing balustrade system. We had pieces falling off and deemed it to be a safety hazard, not knowing whether the contractor would be here this week, next month. I felt that it needed to come down, in addition to the fact that I was not convinced that what was represented on the original plan is exactly what was up on the tower. When they took it down, we did discover that that was the case. The corner posts that had been represented in the plan as 12-inch posts were in fact 10-inch posts. It gave us the opportunity to actually look at and examine the spacing between the balustrades to make sure that what we were going to get and place atop this building would proportionately look like it belonged. You put something up there that's too small, going to look like toothpicks, and just wouldn't look right. I had some discussions with the contractor. There is a company that they deal with. I was allowed to talk to that company and look at several of the different types of systems that they have available, because there is a difference in the actual look of the balustrade itself, and I wanted to try to keep it with that colonial look similar to what we already had in place. You certainly can replicate it exact, but at a much greater cost, because then it's considered a custom-made balustrade system. I did take the opportunity to look at and talk to other companies that sell these systems. The problem I started to run into was, one wouldn't deal with me because I wasn't a contractor. I had several others that I looked at their product, but the railing system looked fine. They had the exact size post, but the balustrades were wrong. Either they were too narrow, didn't have the right turns to them, and wouldn't be appropriate to the building. So we were given an allowance. There was an allowance in the original contract for what was going to be placed atop this building. So we applied the allowance against the cost for the balustrade system that would be appropriate, and the difference resulted in an increase of $47.22. I don't believe that this is going to be a problem with the trustees, because when I met with them a month or so ago, there are funds available to replace what is there, and there is certainly enough money to accommodate this change. The concern of the trustees is in notification, making sure that we have followed the process that the town follows for any project, and that we're replacing it with something that is similar, because after all, the money that is being used is coming from a trust fund that was set up and established to make repairs to things that exist on the structure. And it would be appropriate to make sure that we're replacing it with something that is similar or like. The material is maintenance-free. It's a composite, with the exception that it comes with 2 coats primed. We'll need to have 1 coat painted. The contractor has agreed to do that at no additional cost, because we took the old one down, so he's okay with that. And it would not have to be painted again if you're using a good quality paint for 15 to 20 years, which is going to be no different than probably how we're going to look at treating the rest of the painting of the tower once we get on a maintenance schedule.
Yep.
And I should note that still is well below what we had estimated for the 2010 CIP, which was $26,950 for that system.
Yes, for the tower project.
What was the original allowance before we decided to, before there was a design change, shall we say?
The allowance of the contractor had built into his quote was $1,564. It was what he referred to as a quick rail system. I am familiar with the quick rail system only because I have used such a system on my own deck. The railing comes pre-drilled, and the posts simply insert into the rail system, and you just, basically drop the thing on the deck in the rail system with the posts. This system is going to require some drilling, to accommodate the posts, and the contractor is willing to do that. All I'm doing is paying for the change in the system itself.
Any other questions?
Motion to approve the upgrade.
Motion to
Second.
approve, seconded by Selectman Devanza. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You were an aye?
I'm a nay.
Okay. That's 4-1. All right. And is that it for Town Administrator's report?
Yes, it is.
All right. Next, we'll go on to Selectmen's discussion. Is there any new business before the board? Anyone? Any old business that was left over from last week?
Old business, just because it relates to a conversation we had earlier this evening. I'm looking at the deed by which town purchased West Lawn Cemetery in 1970 deed. It was for West Lawn Cemetery, you know, the parcel across the street from the current cemetery. And there's nothing in that deed.
You talking about West Lawn?
Well,
The extension or West Lawn? West
the
Lawn
parcel
extension.
that is on the
Other side.
other side of
Cemetery Fields.
Cemetery Field. And there's nothing in that 1970 deed that mentions use of the land.
That might corroborate what my conversation, I mean, I think, I trust you, but I think that the administration should just take a look. I think, from what I gather from what Sue told me, that it was in town meeting at the time that the land was going to be purchased for cemetery use. That's all.
That's in,
It may
that's
have
in,
been worded.
I think, and it
warrant
probably
article,
wasn't in the, right.
somebody
and I
has,
think-
somebody has to research the article
Right,
providing
and I
the
think
money,
Sue,
but the
I
deed,
think Sue did, and I could be wrong, but it can wait, it's not that.
What was the
urgent.
date on that, Dave?
it was March 1970, and it's book 2072, page 90.
So that may have been in the 1970 town
You
meeting.
do get a performance bonus for looking that up during the meeting, by the way. You can make sure that he gets that. Any old business, any other old business? And committee reports. First is EDC, and Steve, I believe that's you.
We met, we started to map out the areas for the tax incentive plan. A little more difficult than we thought, but essentially we're looking at this primarily 3 market areas, which would be Grassmere, the Village, and parts of Penardville. It's mostly following along those commercial routes. We expect that we'll probably propose 2 plans in front of you is what we think we'll have. This way you can take a look at it, get a feel for it, and see if you want, as far as scope, a smaller or larger scope within that. Which is probably that's where we spend most of our time as we go forward. They also spoke about the TIF, and I think part of that is that I think we're going to be looking at putting another article, or they'll be looking to put another article this year, looking for the same article we had 2 years back.
Yeah, I
Was it
think,
TIF?
I mean, if
I think
that
it was
does,
I think it was 2 years back.
if that does happen, I think, there was a lot of, so I'm looking for confusion as to what the TIF was, and it was, if that's the direction that EDC would like to go, and I believe last time it was done, it just needs to be, I think, better communicated to the general public, a lot more education on what exactly is a TIF and what type of TIF is being proposed.
And that was a lot of the conversation was going forward, that as we look at these two programs coming up, it's gonna be how we communicate that out to the public, because there is that portion is that, do people think this means I'll have a commercial business next to me, or is this a renovation piece that comes with it? So as we go forward with that, we're in that preliminary stage, but we expect to be finishing up with the diagrams and have a presentation for you probably within, I would say in September.
Okay. Here's my opinion, and the board obviously makes the ultimate decision, but I think if EDC can decide whether or not they want to proceed with the TIF or not, I think this board needs to know ASAP, because if we are going to go that route, what's the TIF going to look like? And then what type of education piece is going to be put in place? That's one. And two, this has a lot to do with planning and zoning, and it goes back to, I think, Nick, you had mentioned before about, at our all boards meeting, we talked about a collaboration and greater communication between, EDC, zoning, planning, trying to make this, streamlined processes. TIF is a way in which can bring about some economic development, but it goes hand in hand, in my opinion, with the planning board and maybe perhaps zoning, but we all need to be on the same page.
And part of that was, and Express was concerned by several members regarding that, the businesses were actually, the backs, in other words, the way it was designed, the backs were towards Mass Road, and that didn't make much sense to them also.
I think that's something that has to be, if we can get.
So in other words, we want to check
Right.
with those, we want to bring up the whole idea again, but we realize there is a time constraint
I
on
think
it.
that would be beneficial to, if we're going down that road. I mean, I heard this, through a third party. I don't know if it's accurate or not, and Phil, I don't know if you're aware. Is that accurate in the sense that the TIF that was proposed for Mast Road, which would be, I guess, behind the Shell station, and was that there was discussions about when there was development, it would be the rear of the building would be facing Mast Road, and there was controversy over that. That's what I heard from a third party. I just don't know if that is that accurate, is it not, and maybe we can get clarity from the planning board or from the planner on that.
If I could, the original TIF was designed to go from the area of Henry Bridge to Tatro Drive.
Right.
Have a parallel road so that we would avoid curb cuts on Mast.
Right.
And yes, there was some discussion about the way, the way it was designed, they didn't want parking lots to be facing Mast Road, so that would obviously mean moving the front of the building. But I think one of the biggest hurdles that project, getting that whole thing passed, was it was designed in a piecemeal fashion. In other words,
Right.
only when a lot was developed would that portion
Road
of the
get
road be
developed.
developed.
Right.
So you could conceivably have a road that never gets finished, 15, 20, or even longer, because those particular lots, one right in the middle, may not get developed.
Right, so then the other approach, the other type of TIF would be to create the entire road, correct?
But
And then it's the, if you build it, they will come theory.
And that was one of the things that was spoken about also, because there's that cost factor of how do you do this up front? And so some of the things that are being discussed and ironed out and would be part of the next.
And then that's the other side of it, in that you're bonding a project in anticipation of development
Right.
occurring. And that development has to occur within a reasonable period of time in order to pay.
For it,
For
through
the bond.
through the TIF,
Correct.
right.
So that was.
But I think, I think we're at a crossroads in our community. I mean, I think, we're gonna have to start to take some different approaches to things, and just being reactive, we have to start considering some of these things, if we're gonna get businesses in here.
So we discussed that, and so a lot of that, like you say, is gonna be that communication piece and the ironing out piece of the TIF. The other idea that came out, and actually it was Al DeRusso who brought it up, I thought it was an interesting idea regarding the website, is that right now when you go there, what he's proposing is that some of these businesses where there are vacant business lots, that take a picture and promote it that way through our website, which is something we discussed, and I think it's it's one of those smaller things I think you can do and have some short-term benefits of it at no cost, obviously.
What does everybody think about that? Good idea? Does anybody have any objections to that?
Because they're going to try and make that site a little, instead of just being a stagnant site, as, showcase the businesses that are here as they've developed and come in, have another site where we can link through, go to it, see those sites that are available.
If you could, based upon what I've just gathered here, the consensus of the board is to proceed in that direction. Anything else from EDC?
We talked about the sign coming in to Mass Road from in between St. A's and Mass Road. And there's a little bit of a question. At one point, there was the idea of a sign, sort of like that Peterborough sign that we would have set up for the 250th. But also, there's the typical blue and white signs that you can get from the DOT that would say, hey, business district here, left or right, and there's always been that question of bringing awareness of businesses in the Penardville section. So they talked about these signs, and not quite, we're gonna do a little more research on that regarding what that entitles, where it would go, and how many signs before we, do you really want coming into Mass Road? So we didn't know, I'd like to run that past the board a little bit. Is this something that you would like to see, a DOT sign coming in?
If you're asking me, I personally would like to go in the direction of the Peterborough, that type of very welcoming
And here's the,
type sign
To the whole town.
for the town. Yeah.
now, my understanding of that is that can't be on, on state land, or shall we say, we have the road.
Right away, state right away.
State right away, so there's a question of where we would locate that, and would you want that in conjunction with the DOT sign, or would we just be looking more towards a welcome to Goffstown, possibly with, let's say hangers underneath the thing, business districts left or right, or that type of situation?
There is.
I mean, it's very initial thoughts
Yeah.
at this point.
I would think it would be worth it to ask DOT permission for an erection of a sign,
Well,
rather than just accepting that signs wouldn't be allowed on the state portion of the highway.
Well, are we open to the idea before resources are spent on it?
Anyone go around EIE and A, or?
Has there been any discussion with the Rotary Club as far as the current ones that they maintain?
Those are the metal signs.
Let's say welcome to Goffstown.
You're looking for
Two of those?
This is more than a metal sign.
The one in Bernardville on King Lanes and...
No, there's, I'm not sure how many are it. It might be
This
five.
one on the back road.
Between 5 and 7 of them were originally done, and they were supplied by the Rotary Club. The Rotary Club came in the Board of Selectmen. Board of Selectmen approved them, and they supplied the signs.
I think what they're looking for is something on a larger scale than the signs. In fact, if when you say there's 5 to 7 of them, I couldn't tell you where one of them is.
One on the back road, I've seen it.
I mean, I couldn't tell you where one of them is.
Well, they've been up for quite a while, so you
No,
go by them, then after a while, they become part of the landscape, you don't see them. But I guess my point is that the Rotary Club has provided these signs. Has there been any discussion with the Rotary Club?
No.
And what's the intent with those? Are they,
Is there one coming in on 114A?
If I could, maybe that is an opportunity to approach the Rotary Club, saying that we're looking to, working with EDC, we're looking to create larger signs, and would they be willing to work with us? Because they have in the past provided signs for all these years as an entry sign into Goffstown.
Yeah, not to work with them up, but the size is what I'm...
no, I guess my point is that the Rotary Club has provided signs to the community. And now, if all of a sudden there's this push for some other signs, is the intent...
You don't want to slight the Rotary.
Well,
for
not only that, but was the intent to leave the Rotary signs up, put these other signs up, how far away they're gonna be for the Rotaries?
Would some be in lieu of the Rotary
is it-
signs?
Let me discuss it. I mean, I'll be honest, it didn't come up. In fact, even for me personally, I don't remember seeing any of these. I mean, they don't, and like you say, maybe I'm so used to
Carl,
the
member of the
landscape.
Rotary still?
Carl?
We could just ask Carl.
I'll get hold of Carl.
Yeah.
All right.
This was done before Carl came
Right.
to town.
Well, I'm saying, but he would know, he'd be able to raise it at the Rotary and find out.
Al Baines is the one who came in originally and made the presentation to the Board of Selectmen.
Got it.
All right, that's it for EDC, right? Next up is Conservation Commission.
Conservation Commission met on the 28th of July. We had public discussions. We met with a developer regarding map 9, lot 33, 7, 46, and 60, Cordass and Blackbriar Woods. The discussion regarding that centered around drainage systems, who would hold the easement to the open space. The Conservation Commission put this development back on the agenda for August 25th to try to come up with some solutions to those issues. There was also a discussion with Brookfield Investment Group regarding the proposed excavation site along Norman Road. And again, the discussion there was about the wetland mapping. They requested to have an updated wetland map only in the areas where the excavation was going to take place. In other words, that's a very large site, and they weren't going to require wetland mapping on areas that weren't going to be touched with the proposed project. And there also, the commission is requesting to do a site walk when the planning board does a site walk with the developer. There was also a discussion with regards to the Fournier Revocable Trust regarding a landscape business site plan on Patty Hill Road. There was discussion and presentations from two wetland scientists, one for the developer and one also for the abutters. The discussion was held regarding salt levels, and basically the Conservation Commission boiled it down to having the developer come back with a salt shed plan, best practices management plan, and some type of ongoing monitoring plan where the soils and groundwater would be tested on a periodic or annual basis to assure that salt is not leaching from the new salt shed. So the developer will be coming back, excuse me, for the August 25th meeting to present the new best practices plan for that. There was a recommendation for a waiver, wetlands waiver, map 3, lot 5939 on Van Buren Circle for a pool and porch. I think it encroached on the wetlands buffer by 2 feet. Conservation Commission voted to recommend to the ZBA that they grant the variance request. There were some timber cuts that were reviewed. There was some discussion on Stonebridge Country Club. Apparently there has been some work done on beaver dams, some work to try to increase the flow for the golf course. And then finally, the commission discussed the issue of the Glen Lake beachfront, and they would like to be included in the discussion with this board. They suggested during the meeting having non-residents pay a fee, suggested using transfer station stickers. They also suggested that the town monitor the use of parking at the kindergarten for those using the lake. But I think the biggest thing that came out of it was they would like to be included in the discussions as we go forward with the lakefront and what will be done to solve that issue. And that was Conservation Commission.
All right, since you have a request, which is with regard to the Glen Lake issue, let's take that up for discussion. Does the board wish to include the Conservation Commission in that, in the decision-making process?
I don't think their request was to be involved in the decision-making process.
Just want to have a discussion with the selectmen.
Correct.
Okay.
And I think that purpose is to point out things that we may not be aware of, or at least their feelings. And primarily, Collis Adams, who was part of that original Glen Lake waterfront committee, is also on Conservation Commission, so you'd probably be getting his comments.
Any problems with, having a member Conservation Commission come before the board?
I don't know if you want a member, but if the commission has to be part of it, maybe have them rather than one.
Well, I meant a representative from the commission. That's strike that. But I don't have a problem with a member of the Conservation Commission. I guess giving speaking on behalf of someone speaking on behalf of the commission as to their position. I don't have any problem with that. It's part of the discourse of the whole thing.
Do we have any type of timetable regarding how we're handling this decision, and how long will it continue before we actually make a decision, and how many people will weigh in?
We were still waiting on
No, I understand that,
right.
but I mean, let's just say if he was to weigh in next week.
Right.
And I mean, is this something you would still look for other groups, such as, to weigh in? I mean, how far do you want, how far do we go?
That's where I'm going on this thing, because I think that certainly if conservation wants to share their opinion as to what should be done, which I think they've already done that, but if there's anything additional, The sooner the better, I would think. But
The reality also is, once we decide to move on a decision, let's say it's an ordinance change,
Still takes a lot of
there's a
time.
2-week process of public notice.
Right.
Then there's a minimum of 2 weeks between meetings.
Right.
Then there's a minimum of 2 weeks before we make a decision. So you're looking at a minimum of 6 weeks
Right.
if we decided to do something today.
Right.
So I think you're beyond,
Oh, that I
you're
understand.
beyond the season, so then it comes to, is there a reason to rush right now?
I'm not saying a reason
To
to
come to
rush, but, and I realize the season is over. I just think sometimes we just have to come to a decision. This thing started in the spring, and here we are talking about maybe making a decision in the fall or the winter.
Yeah, see, I don't have any problem with that.
That is just,
No.
I mean, that's just too long. Doesn't make sense.
And I agree with you, because last week or the week before, I wanted to make a decision, but I think where we have had a request from commission to be involved, it was a formal request through me as their representative, as the selectman rep. I don't think it upsets the apple cart by allowing them the opportunity to provide their input.
Their next meeting is
The last,
August 24th.
correct.
Their last one?
Their next meeting, they won't meet again now till August 24th.
I think it's the third Wednesday.
So, if you want to make this request of them formally at a meeting to,
Well, you know what, they can
decide
call
then.
another meeting, as far as I'm concerned, and I think, I'd like to get them in as soon, I think the issues that they're gonna point out are already known to them, it's just a matter of have somebody articulating it, and I don't think it's prudent to wait another month, to get that. So, I would think that we'd wanna get them in the next week or two, because I think we'll get an answer back from Drescher in a week or two. So, if we could let the chair know of the Conservation Commission, that we'll schedule the Conservation Commission for either next week or the week after that, and give them, 15 minutes to articulate their point of view. And if they'd like to give us something in writing beforehand, like bullets as to what the pros and cons are of different things, then so be it. That'd be great to get that.
So are you suggesting that they hold a special meeting?
Yep, if that's what they want to do. I mean, I just don't think that, we're going to delay this another month, and then we're going to, it doesn't make any sense to me. They could have come back, they knew what was going on here, the meeting before this. So if it's that important, hold a special meeting, come before the board, articulate your point. I just think August 24th, then, just delay.
This started in the spring, if there was a high
Right.
interest, I mean, something, I would have expected some voice, not to say that I don't welcome it now, but just the idea of, going as far out as we're going for this decision.
I mean, basically, what I'm getting from this, is that when the notes say, and I wasn't at the meeting, the commission suggested having a non-resident pay a fee and suggesting use of the transfer station sticker to keep track of residents and have the town monitor the use of a park at the kindergarten. So I'm gathering that they're gonna come in and they're gonna say, we're not in favor of exclusive use for Goffstown residents only. We would like to see it to be inclusive, similar to this Piscataquag advisory group. We'd like to see some sort of pay a fee type deal and work on the whole issue with the parking at the kindergarten. We're gonna have them come in, but that's what they're gonna tell us. Now, there may be some other things which we may or may not know, but I just don't know. I want to give them the courtesy of coming in, but I do not want to delay this thing another month.
And I agree on that. I believe the way it evolved at that meeting, if you remember 2 weeks ago, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, it may have been 3 weeks ago, we extended an invitation to the original members of the Glen Lake Waterfront Committee. That ended up basically being Collis, is the only one in existence right now that was involved. Collis brought it up at the Conservation Commission meeting, saying that he was invited to investigate and provide some suggestions, but as the only member of that existing committee, or existing member of that committee, he opened it to Conservation and said, would you like to be involved? Is this something that the Conservation Commission would like to provide input? And the consensus for the commission was yes. if they wanted to. Now, they threw around different ideas. Whether or not those ideas are the position of the commission, I can't say yes or no.
Okay, but so that's a different spin on it, because the board did not ask the Conservation Commission to be part of the discussion. We asked the stakeholders.
Mhm.
Then, obviously, one stakeholder then opened it up to the Conservation Commission. I
But
don't have
if
any
you look
prob-
at the RSAs, you could argue, and I think reasonably, that Conservation Commission is a stakeholder.
I'm not saying that they're not. And that's why I don't mind having them come in. But I just don't, my personal opinion, and I don't dictate what you guys dictate that. I personally would like to see it happen in another week or two, not in another month. That's not my call. That's your call.
Only concern that I have, this being the month of August, I mean, just to expect a committee to have a special meeting for something like that on, that short a notice, I mean, being August and vacations and stuff, I mean, I just have a concern on that.
And I would just go back, this has been on the radar screen since the spring. And you gotta,
Early spring.
sometimes you just gotta go and press things and try to expedite decisions, and I think we've already been critiqued already for this being delayed or being, protracted. So at this point, I'm trying to streamline it and quicken the pace. If that's not where the board wants to go, then I respect that, but I'm just stating my opinion. I'd just like to see the speed increase on it, so. David?
I guess I have a different take, looking at the minutes from the Conservation Commission. They simply requested to be included in the beachfront discussion whenever that is next on our agenda. That's how I interpret their request. And next on the agenda is whenever we have a response back from our insurance carrier and from the town attorney, they've been asked to provide some guidance. And so I would expect that we would have that guidance in hand, then we would schedule the discussion on the beachfront. And then when we schedule it, then ask the other stakeholders to come in to the room at the same time.
If I may,
Sure.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but if the town attorney's letter or opinion comes in next week, then it would be my expectation to schedule a discussion for it after the week after. If it comes in 2 weeks, I would schedule it a week after that. So maybe the response to conservation is that we are awaiting our attorney's opinion as to several issues that the board requested. We expect to make a decision or have those discussions the week following receiving that opinion, of which you are more than welcome to attend. That could be in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I'm not sure when, but that's when it's gonna happen. So be prepared that it could be in as little as 2 weeks. It might be 3 or 4.
I like that.
So
Just clarification, Selectmen, where were you getting that, where they said they wanted to be included in our discussion for the next?
Page 3, bottom paragraph.
Conservation Commission would like to be included in the discussion
Well,
with the Selectmen.
right. And
he was
that
there, though.
discussion hasn't
Right.
isn't on an agenda yet. It could be on the agenda when we have the responses from the insurance carrier and the town attorney.
but you were there, so I have to, the minutes only say what the minutes say. You were there, so I defer to you on what was the intent.
Correct. They voiced the opinion and the desire to be involved in the discussion. They did not formulate a position at that meeting. So I think it would be contingent, at least, for them to have a worthwhile discussion with this board, to at least have the opportunity to meet. Now, whether or not they can hold a special meeting, I can't answer that, but I think they would still need to meet, at least as a board, to formulate their position,
But
versus individuals coming in and
Right.
voicing their individual opinion.
I don't personally see any harm in sending an email to the chair of conservation stating that the board is waiting a legal opinion. It is the intent of the board to discuss the matter in the week following receipt of that, that decision, please be prepared that that discussion may be held as soon as 2 weeks from now, or it could be 3 or 4 weeks from now, but we just wanted to let you know in case you wanted to hold a special meeting to take a collective position on behalf of conservation. You know, it may be after your August 24th meeting, but it might not, because that would be 3 weeks. And I think that's, you know, we have a process to go to. It's our obligation to try to, you know, speed this thing up. That's just my take. So where do we want to go? Steve, we'll go around.
I think this process has gone
Gone on too,
too long. I think it's just been stalled out. I think some of it, I'm gonna put it right out there, I think some of it was by design. I think it's time to move forward. If it takes us this long to make a decision on this, I can't imagine how we're gonna handle the rest of the fall with the budget season. And I don't even see where we're gonna squeeze this in when budget season starts.
And that's a good point. You know, this is something that we probably want to, you know, have, you know, solidified before we even get into that situation. Nick?
I'd like to hear back from Conservation as to their ability to meet and get back to us.
What do you mean by that? So you would be against what I just stated?
I am not against sending them an email, some correspondence saying this is when we may be discussing this, and would it be possible for you to meet with us on these times? And then if they say no, people are on vacation, there's no possible way we can meet, they would like to meet with us after their next meeting, I think we should try to accommodate that.
All right.
I agree with your plan.
All right.
This is anything, if we implement some restriction or some fee, it's going to be practical to implement it for next season. We can resolve our budget issues this fall and resume discussion on this, because it's still time to affect next season. And this is a good plan.
Okay. And the other thing, if I could just add, if we did that, if we went that route, that's not going to preclude the Conservation Commission at any point in the process, no matter where we go, whether it's exclusivity or whether it's a fee pay or the status quo. There would be, well, with the first, if there's any ordinance change, there's going to be 1 month of public comment and dialogue, which there'll be plenty of time. So we're talking a 6-week period. So right now, in the best case scenario, Attorney Drescher gives us an opinion, and we talk about it next Monday. If we were to then make a decision the following Monday, then you would look at least a 5-week process beyond that in terms of developing the ordinance, you know, writing it up. I mean, and then holding 2 public hearings and then taking a final vote. There's all that time in between for conservation, you know, to weigh in.
We'll be skating on the lake.
Yeah. So I see it as there is ample opportunity just in the whole ordinance changing process for conservation to weigh in between now and that time. So.
If I may?
Yeah.
I think it comes back to the discussion we had with, you need to have an ordinance in place, and before you go to public hearings. And I think the Conservation Commission is coming or approaching this in a different, from a different perspective than we are. We're looking at things like access. They're looking at things like intensity of use. For example, over the holiday weekend, there were over 40 some odd vehicles in the kindergarten parking lot, with nearly 200 plus people at the waterfront, which was clearly overused. And that is detrimental to the waterfront itself, the plants, the shoreline. So if we're just looking at making it a, quote, resident-only waterfront, but have not addressed approaching the school district, talking about kindergarten parking, we miss the intensity of use, which is the entire conservation piece. So again, I'll bring up, have we discussed meeting with the school district? How do we formulate an RSA, an ordinance, if we have not included the school district portion? And what's going to happen with the kindergarten? Or do we do that afterwards and then try to redo what we do now because we're in a hurry to make a decision?
Now you just convinced me to go Steve's route, because you have not shared with me anything that I did not already know. I don't know if anything new has been brought to the equation since Collis was here the last time and talked about intensity of use. You know, these are all issues that we know about. I know, and I now even know where they want to go. They want to see a non-resident pay a fee, use of transfer station stickers, and monitor the use of the park. So I kind of know. Now it's me as a selectman needing to make a decision. I know the issues. I got to weigh them. Yes, I got to weigh the intensity of use versus the exclusivity versus access versus all these different things. I know the issues.
But let me
I
ask,
want to give them the courtesy of reiterating them on the record, but I know them.
let me ask a question. How do we formulate an ordinance if we have not taken into account the school side? What happens with the kindergarten parking? If we could have 60 resident vehicles in that school parking lot overusing the waterfront.
Well, I think the whole issue is that we're waiting for Attorney Drescher's opinion.
Okay.
If Attorney Drescher comes back and says, you've got issues here, here, and here, then we don't even go to the school because it might be a moot issue. Okay? If Attorney Drescher comes back and says, yeah, you can do X, Y, and Z, well, now you have to tighten up the school piece. And I guess what I'm trying to say is there's going to be another 4 to 6 weeks probably before this thing even gets to the stage of where we're going to be voting on what we're going to do. And finality of it. Yes, I think we're looking at 4 weeks from now, probably on even adopting or going forward with ordinance language. And then we're looking at another 4 weeks beyond that. We will be ice skating by that time.
But if I could just go back to what you said, if Attorney Drescher comes back and says, we can't do this because of X, Y, and Z, it's a moot issue, we don't need to meet with conservation, we don't need to meet with anyone because we can't do it. And if he comes back and says, yes, you can do A, B, and C, then you just said, we need to sit down with the school board. Okay, so that alone says we should have enough time to invite conservation to come after their monthly meeting and provide input because we're not going to meet with the school
Okay.
board in the next 2 or 3 weeks.
When does the school board meet?
Actually, I think they're meeting tonight, from what I saw. So I don't know. And I know that issue has been, Stacy Buckley, the superintendent of schools, is aware of the issue. From what I heard, that they do have concerns with parking because people are taking parking spaces during the school day. So they do have issues with it, and they would like there to be some sort of enforcement up there. So,
My understanding also, that was the easy part.
Yeah.
As far as an ordinance, as far as cooperation with the school regarding the parking in that area.
yeah, I didn't get the sense that we were going to get a fight from the school board in terms of restricting access. I think it would be actually quite the contrary. I think they would be very supportive of restricting access. So I just don't know how long this thing is going to be going on. And, if conservation, wants to come in, we set the timetable, and again, I just don't know what we're going to gain from this by putting this thing off another month, because that's really what it is, another delay. So I'm just for getting them in over the next, 1 week, within the next 2 to 3 weeks. And if it's so important, they want to hold a special meeting to determine if they want to do it, great. If they want to roll the dice to see if Drescher's opinion doesn't come in 2 or 3 weeks and it'll line up perfectly with their schedule, that's great too. But I personally just want to proceed. I got one. I think you're the same, or no?
I want the two opinions on the table before we have our next discussion. And like you said, the following week, it's on the table.
Right.
That's
The earliest that conservation would need to be here could potentially be 2 weeks from today. And this would be an email letting them know that. Are you okay with that?
Yes.
And are you okay with that?
I'll go with that.
That's 3. Are you okay with that?
I'm fine, I just,
You're just sitting back listening.
no, I'm just listening because all the discussion that's being discussed are issues that I brought up before, and I was told by various members that I was just bringing things up as a one-time thing, but I'm the one who said that the parking spaces, making the 18 parking spaces for Goffstown residents only, was never addressing the intensity of use, and intensity of use is the issue. But, so I'm just enjoying sitting here, watching the discussion.
Wait a minute, we talked about that early before we even went into the 2 months or going to July, waiting for reports to see if there would be intensity and wouldn't be people. We knew that all back in the spring. This is no surprise. It's been drawn out. I just want to make sure that this is no surprise regarding all these conversations. We talked about this early spring, the whole, everything, and it was always about intensity of use, even back then in July when I spoke about it.
All right.
Early spring, I should say.
Here's my take, okay? And it's nothing to do with Glen Lake Beach, and it's not to diminish the issue, but we're faced with trying a challenge, a directive from the Budget Committee to reduce our budget by 10%. We got so many other issues going on, and I'm not saying this one's not important, because it is, but in the pecking order of things, to me, this thing should not be occupying 30% of our time, which is what it is. And, we should be focusing in on, our budget. We should be talking about how to get, businesses in this town, how to help the businesses that are already in town. We've got a lot of things on our plate, and we are, procrastinating on this particular issue. And I think I have a good understanding of what all the issues are. As a selectman, I got to weigh the pros and cons of intensity of use, of parking at the kindergarten, of police, and all this drinking and all this other stuff that has been put before me, and I got to make a decision. And I don't have a problem making that decision. I just don't think I need more and more time for yet another committee. Then what, EDC is going to come in saying, oh, by the way, can you wait till our next meeting, because we want to see what the economic impact is, because there's people who go there right now and they stop at Sully's and get food before they go to the beach. And we just want to study, we just want to weigh in. And by the way, we canceled our other meetings, so can you at some point we know what the issues are. They have been brought up.
So what you're going down is we don't need to invite any other commissions into our discussion when we have the information from the two.
I believe we have the information. I would give, Conservation Commission the courtesy.
We don't have to respond.
Well, no, I want to give them the courtesy if they want to come, but on our timetable, not waiting, that's all. And it could be as early as 2 weeks, it could be 3, or it could be 4. I don't know. But I just don't think that I have to put this off another month when it could be done in 2 weeks. So I think that there's 3 of us, respectfully or more, who will proceed in that direction, and we'll send Kimberly an email letting them know that they are certainly invited to come to the next Board of Selectmen's meeting either 2 weeks from now or
whenever we get Drescher's
yes,
opinion and
yes,
it comes before
the following
board,
week,
and
right.
notify her.
Yeah,
She may
in the
only have
time.
a week's notice. Could only be 1 week's
But
notice
if
unless.
if she wants to hold a special meeting to get that from her commission, that's her call.
And you want to invite her to the meeting to discuss the concerns that they have about?
Correct. Their concerns or any recommendations that they may have. And if we can get it in advance, even better.
So maybe it's something they give you in writing if they cannot.
They can,
appear.
CIP. Oh, is that it, Nick? Right?
That was it for conservation.
CIP. Now the bad news, I guess, right?
CIP met on Thursday, and they finalized their deliberations and voted to send their recommendations to the planning board. If you'd like, I can go over just a quick comparison. Overall, CIP 2010 came in at $3,892,430. This year's recommendation going to the planning board is $5,998,407. Now, keep in mind, there were items on CIP last year that were separate special articles, all of the vehicles.
Right.
So those were voted down separately, so they're not included in this CIP figure. Normally, those vehicles would have been in CIP. So that number is
So you're
much
saying
more.
on the 6 million CIP item,
It was almost $1 million.
I can quickly go over.
yeah, I think there was $1 million in trash, wasn't it, roughly?
There's,
978.
Huh?
978.
yeah, it's right
I
under a
think it was.
million, yeah, okay.
This year, there are 3 police cruisers at $101,000 and change. There is Tanker 5. There is Ambulance 1 at $190,000, but that has offsetting revenue for the ambulance fund. There is a 110-wheeler at $214,000. The white Volvo Packer, $247,000. So just as a comparison, in town vehicles, last year, a proposed CIP was, or approved was only $166,000, because there was nearly, I think it was 1.5 million
Right, yep.
special articles. This year, vehicles is 1.3 million. There was town hall HVAC units, financial software, land use software, so the administration came in at $490,000. Police department, phase 2 of the communication system, $193,000. 2 Parks and Rec projects, both the resurfacing for Barnard Pool and Roy Park Pool, which is a safety issue, and the loss of water.
What are those?
Third one's 36.6, and the other one's 25.5.
Just a question on that.
Yes.
You said that resurfacing addresses the loss of water?
I believe, well, they're not sure, but right now, the cracks and the scaling of the concrete on the bottom of the pools could be causing the loss of water, but it is also a safety issue. They've had kids that have cut their feet on it.
Okay, but I guess the question I have, sometimes in the past, there's been concerns that the water loss could be in the piping.
They did have, I did sit on Parks and Rec,
Pressure
they
test.
did have someone, they had someone come
Okay.
out and look at it.
Okay.
And I guess they were explaining, you can actually look down the walls and you can,
Yeah, if you
see, you can see it's moving. I guess that there's metal supports that come up, and also how it goes along the floor, and that's where they're explaining that seepage is occurring in.
is if you
But
pressure
have
test
they-
that.
Have they had the piping tested?
I don't know, in
Yeah.
CIP, we didn't get that presentation.
But I'm saying is that they had professionals go out and look at it.
Okay.
You sure, Steve, on that?
That's
Okay.
correct. Rick had them out, and both of them are talking that.
Yeah, the reason why I ask is I hate
In the Roy pool, I'm not talking about the barn, and I apologize with that.
Yeah, the reason why I say that is I hate to make the representation that the resurfacing is gonna address the water problem. Resurface the pool and there's still a water problem because it's got something to do with the
Right.
pipes.
I misspoke. It
Underground.
may or may not, it may not.
Yeah,
And literally, a
Address
quick
that.
pressure test, of the plumbing pretty much tells you if you have a leak in the pipes.
Capital projects, road plan, 2.5 million. South Mass drainage, bond payment, 72,000. West Lawn Cemetery expansion, 148.5. Worthley Hill Road drainage upgrade, 440,000.
Where did that come from? Was that even on the,
That's on the road plan.
no, yeah, but was that a CIP item ever? Before?
I don't have mine.
Last year? I don't recall it.
It's funny, because when you said that, I was kind of wondering where that came from, too.
I don't have I don't have
It's
my
not
book.
part, it sounds like it would be part of the road plan, not a separate.
It appears in both. It's in the road plan, and it's also a separate CIP. When questioned, Carl said if the CIP was approved, this 440, which it was as a project, he would replace the Worthley Hill Road project in the road plan with another road. So he'd utilize that 440,000 for another
Well, that's
road.
questions for another day. All right.
Pleasant Street Mast Road improvement, the engineering for that, 50,000, and that goes with the grant
Right.
that we applied for. So that subtotal was 3,210,500. There's offsetting revenue, so the town total was 4,875,477. On the school side, school total was 1,122,930. And that was basically comprised of two areas. Two performance upgrades. They're continuing their energy upgrades, which is saving the school district huge amount of money, and one is Bartlett School for $62,390. The other one is for Maple Ave School, $72,675, and the remaining CIP requests are for existing bond payments.
Now, as I
Projects.
remember these for the schools, is that, I think it was Honeywell, I don't know who does it now, but if they do measures in the school, whether that be, it runs the gamut from caulking to replacing windows, you name it, but they guarantee you that whatever the cost is, you will get back in energy savings, right? Okay, so it's the same program.
And yes, that is the
Right.
continuation of that project,
Okay.
and the savings is measured in the hundreds of thousands of dollars so far since they've been utilizing that project. But primarily, the bulk of their CIP request is to continue bond payments.
And I think, it's something similar, and I should toot the horn of the library here. The library put in a radiant radiant flooring heating system, and their I think it went down like a third, their heating bill. The oil use. The electricity use went up slightly because of it, but because they were using a more efficient heating system, the savings on the fuel consumption was considerable. So, and I know that we're exploring some opportunities here in this building and see if there's any grants. But the tighter you can make the buildings and the more the efficient the HVAC systems are, et cetera, you can reap tremendous benefits from that in the long term. So that's going to planning board, Nick, and I guess we sit and we wait until we go through budget time. Right. Well, thank you very much for serving on that committee. Some of us have done that as well, and it's a lot of time. Really appreciate it, Nick, representing the board, and I know during the summertime it's not always probably the first thing that you want to do. But thank you again for taking the time and doing that. Is there anything like in the whole process that we need to be aware of as a board? Obviously, projects got deferred, so you arrived at this number, but I'm assuming that it wasn't easy getting to that $5.9 million number.
No, there were projects that were put off. There were vehicles that were put off.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's an interesting, being the selectman's rep on that board. It's a difficult position because I really can't express the board's position on these projects because we haven't discussed it as a board.
Right.
So, but that's something that we probably can start on
Right.
sooner rather than later and look at these things and kind of figure out what our position is.
And by design, for those watching on TV, this is CIP is more of a planning tool, and it lets us know, hey, what are the capital projects that are out there that are needed for the community, and then ultimately, when it comes to funding those projects, that falls under the Board of Selectmen and the school board as to what they believe the community can afford. So, but as it's no secret that even if that $1 million of vehicles that had gotten approved, you'd still be looking at $1 million increase above that. So.
Not going to be easy.
It's not going to be easy, right? I think that's a very fair statement. Okay, that is it for committee reports, selectmen's discussion. Is there any other new or old business that any selectmen would like to bring up? I'm not hearing anything. Then we will go into, what? You had something?
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
It was just the August 11th meeting that Mr. Pierce was going to. We talked about it regarding the trestle. I have no problem.
This is the meeting with the mayor of
Correct.
Manchester.
Correct. And it was brought up last week, and I have no problem going. Just want to make sure everyone knows where I live, obviously, regarding down at the lake. So it does have it does have an impact for me down there, but I have no problem going there. I just want to make sure everyone's aware of that, and I have no problem going.
I don't have any problem. You're going too?
Yes.
All right.
Okay. You have the date?
August
5:30. August.
Where?
11th.
August, I'm sorry, the date.
August 11th.
It's
It's on my first chart.
City Hall, third floor.
City Hall. Okay, that's what I was looking for. All right.
All right.
5:30 a.m., right?
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, gentlemen. All right, so I need a motion to
Uh,
go, I'm sorry.
And this is just maybe setting some agendas for the future. I know we just had a discussion about how packed our agenda is going to be with discussing budget and but we seem to end the meeting and never discuss budget or what we're doing. I mean, are we waiting till October when we get our
No,
budget presentation? So are we gonna set some dates? I mean, that seems to be something that we can set sooner rather than later and have the agenda fill up around it versus trying to find a meeting that is empty.
Right, well, we know that the October meeting is going to stand with the budget committee, but we wanted to formulate the budget, our budget prior to that. Do we want to set aside separate meetings other than the traditional Board of Selectmen Monday nights? Do we want to do another night just specifically devoted to budget, which might not be a bad idea, since it's pretty important? And if so, what dates, what nights work?
I thought that if we took one department each meeting night, that we'd be able to do it.
Nick, do you have any ideas, and what would you recommend?
We're in the beginning of August.
Right.
I think if we set aside time on each of our Monday nights and tackle a different issue, for instance, CIP, it hasn't gone to planning board yet, but pretty much gonna get what CIP sends to planning, so there are points there that we can discuss. I heard a little while ago that we have this big, we can't put the Glen Lake waterfront decision any further into the future because we have packed agendas with budget.
Well,
So I'm trying to see when are we gonna have these discussions.
I'm envisioning that we're gonna have these budget discussions in the month of September. So that would be, if we wanna do it earlier, we can do it earlier, but it would be because if we're gonna present our budget to the budget committee or some co-presentation, that was gonna be on October 23rd. That would give us, nearly 6 to 7 weeks to do that, which I thought would be ample time. But if we want to start in August, we can certainly do that. So that was my mindset was that September is going to be hot and heavy more in the budget and be pretty full agendas. August is going to be, not as busy. But if we want to take advantage of this time, we can do that.
I would suggest that maybe if we can look through CIP, identify projects that we may find questionable, and then delve into those expenditures deeply so that when the formal presentation comes to us, we'll be in a position to quickly decide what we're going to keep, what we're going to defer.
Well, here's my question. If we're looking to expedite things and get more information, I hate to say it, but even right now, we can quickly go through these big ticket items, there's about a dozen of them, and ask the pointed questions that need to be asked. So let's just say hypothetically, and we start off with the first one, which is always the 3 police cruisers. Is there any way that we can get by with only replacing 2? And going on down the line. I mean, we talked about there's a few things you mentioned, $2.5 million road program, and then on top of that, another $400 and something thousand for Wortherly Hill drainage. Right off the bat, I'm thinking, are we in a financial position if we're trying to keep a budget 10%? I mean, even trying to work towards that, could that even be in the realm of possibility? So if you want, we can do that right now and get our questions, out there to the department heads so they can start working on it.
Mm-hmm. And I can provide some of the answers. We specifically asked the police chief to come in to answer that question. Good. And the issue is, you put a vehicle off, then the next year you have 4 vehicles to purchase. I mean, it has been set up so that 3 vehicles are consistently replaced so that you never replace more than 3.
Okay, that assumes that we're pushing these cars to 90 to 100,000 in use.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. All right. And again, and I don't.
Part of the problem also is because of the swap over. Because they're changing the cruisers, they're no more Crown Vics, you got the new type of vehicle.
Correct.
And if you throw that out, it makes it even worse.
Yes, they anticipate that this will be the last year that they may be purchasing, that they will be able to purchase the Crown Vics, and then you're looking at about a $4,000 to $6,000 per vehicle increase in cost because of the change in cage sizes and potentially
Right, because
consoles.
now we won't be able to swap that out
Correct.
anymore. Right, I mean, do we, how do you want to proceed? Do you want to do this, have a little discussion now, or you want to wait? We can do it next week.
Sounds like we'd be able to form some pretty good decisions on the CIP.
Next week or now?
Because Nick and Steve, the CIP committee's recommendation to the planning board generally sails through the planning board untouched, and then comes to us. So, 99% assurance, let's go with what you have right now and enter into our discussions on the CIP items.
Okay, so let's just go down the list that we're
Next-
here.
Schedule it.
You want to
next
schedule it
week
now,
or
or you want to do it now, or you want to schedule it next week? Talk to me.
I'd like to schedule it next week so we can have the department heads here for a few of those discussions.
Maybe if we could request from Brian Rose, if he could email each of us
The matrix.
the matrix,
Mhm.
the updated matrix, so that
I like that.
you have that for review.
Okay, let's do this. If we can get the matrix, and then between now and, I mean, I don't know if it's possible, if you guys can do this, but go through there, and if you have questions, direct those questions to admin, who would then send them off to the department heads. So it's all one document.
If I could you also request that Patty send the minutes? Because all of the minutes have been approved, other than the last.
They might be on the web, the minutes on the web.
Yeah, because I hear what you're saying, because
So you have minutes to review, and you can see the
we'll have
discussion that
the
went
discussion and
along
the
with,
questions, yeah.
so that may answer some of your
Yeah.
questions.
In preparation of this, are we going to be looking for a target number for CIP and working what prioritizes within that number?
Well, let's be practical
I-
here. I
I
mean,
mean, there's
if
gonna be a
you
practicality.
level fund CIP,
That's what I'm trying to
you're
get at.
looking at 3.9 roughly million
follow what I'm
dollars.
saying
If you're
is-
looking at a 10% reduction off of that, or even greater, because in some cases, if you're trying to balance out your operational increases with less spending in the capital area, you might be looking at a 3.3 to 3.5 capital expense. So I just throw that out.
But you understand why I'm bringing it up, how,
Well, I think we answered our own question. The July 13th memo that we sent to the department head says, at a minimum, we need to freeze 2011 CIP at the same level as 2010.
Yeah. Huh. There you go.
So I think we already sent that guidance out.
okay,
Right.
so.
But that was, in fairness to the department heads, that was sent out after they did all their.
Oh, absolutely, but I think that answers the
So-
question, what are we looking?
This is the number we're
Right.
working at, we have a target number, is what we're saying.
Our target number is $3.9 million or less.
So you want the CIP matrix emailed to all of you, and with regards to the minutes, can you access the minutes?
Their minutes up through the 15th of July are online.
So how many meetings after that did you have?
I can email you guys all of the minutes.
That'd be
that I-
great. This way we can read through them and.
Okay, now, you also want the department heads to know that you'll be discussing this next Monday, in the event that they have some concerns or issues they want to communicate to you before you discuss, make a decision next Monday. One concern I have is the town administrator is on vacation this week, and so is the police chief. So those are two department heads that won't be able to.
Well, I think what we'll do is this, we'll have an opportunity as a board to review these materials, and we'll have discussion about these on Monday. If there's any questions that come from that, we'll just ask for it to be the following week. No big deal.
All right.
Not a big deal. And again, this is, I see this as similar to the Glen Lake issue, is that we need to be at a certain point, and we're gonna have department heads advocating for their project, and we're gonna have to make those really tough decisions as to what can be, put off, what can't be put off, and, albeit only a $61,000 price tag to fix the pools, that's a huge priority for Parks and Rec. But is that any greater priority than the communications for the police department, or admin's financial software, or a road program, or police cruisers? They're all very important. All of them individually are, and for each department, it is critical for each department. We're going to have to, get through all that.
If I could bring up 2 points. One is the board needs to make a decision on some of the projects, and I'll just throw it out as an example. Fire department had their radio upgrade, and that was based on the fact that they were applying for a grant, which they received. However, we never included an offsetting revenue last year in CIP. So we raised through taxes the entire $196,000, although we only spent half of it. The other discussion is we have the police side now. The board, I think, needs to discuss and come to a decision. Would we fund that program if we don't get the offsetting revenue? And if the answer is no, if we're not going to appropriate the entire $190,000 on the town side, we should include the offsetting revenue,
right,
because that reduces the amount that we're raising via taxes. I brought that up at CIP, and they said, well, the grant is never a given, but we want the project to be included, so there was no offsetting revenue.
But there has
put in there. No, it was not. On some other projects we have put in
You
offsetting
don't have to
revenue.
put the offsetting revenue in.
You don't have
You
to.
don't know if you're gonna get it.
Correct, but I think if the decision is made,
Right.
that
Exactly,
we
if
would
that
only
decision
fund it
was
if
not
we
made.
get exact
Then you would.
ratio. And that's something the board
Right.
needs to
Right.
decide as we go forward.
Or consequently, you would only budget $96,000.
No, you have to
with
gross
Wait a
appropriate.
minute,
Right.
on the fire
have to
side,
do
isn't
the
that
whole
what we did do on the fire side?
No.
Okay, I thought there was a.
No, I specifically asked Sue to check into
Okay.
that, we did not appropriate.
Well-
The other thing is, and I mentioned, I spoke to Janice about it earlier, when we get to the financial piece, if we could look at some other options, the software as a service, some of those other alternatives, and if there's any cost savings there, that would probably be some of the questions I would ask when we get to that portion.
All right, who was the budget committee rep to CIP? Do you know?
Oh boy, now you're asking me to think here.
I'll find out. I want to just reach out to them and ask them a couple of
Was
questions.
Bill Gordon,
Bill Gordon
was he
was-
the rep or was he from water? Bill was
He's
the
a representative from the water
He was the
precinct
citizen rep, I believe.
citizen rep.
on the CIP.
I'd have a hard time right now telling you who was sitting around the table.
All right. Okay. So we'll do that next week. Anything else that any selectman wants on the agenda? Any items? All right. Let's need a motion to go into non-public session, and we have a couple of things to go over in non-public.
So moved.
Okay, let me give you a specific RSA. It was on, well, it's a legal thing.
91-8:13.
Okay, do I have a second?
Did you
Second.
say D?
32A, colon 32.
The legal? You wanna-
Legal.
Legal is E.
E is in Edward.
E is legal claims.
That's which is what one of them is. Right? Would you disagree with that? Anyone disagree? Okay, so we have a motion and a second by Selectman Campusano, I believe. Did you second that, motion to go into non-public?
Yes, but just a quick question.
Yeah.
The items under legal, is that just FYI, or is that something we need to discuss?
I don't know.
Those are just FYI.
FYI,
Not, I didn't think any discussion was expected.
yeah, I didn't think so either, but
I mean, Sue stated on her agenda if needed. So that would indicate to me that she was only pointing out that information
Okay.
for FYI.
Then the first one, is that legal as well?
No, I'm kind of wondering what that is under.
Which one?
you could defer it until she's back to explaining.
Well, no, I guess, are we specifically discussing individuals for compensation?
Yeah.
Is that the one on page 2?
Or it could end up being
I
individuals.
don't know,
so.
that's the only piece of information that I have. Is there anything in last week's minutes that,
Well, we had a report last week. The discussion was to,
Well, first let me ask this, with regard to, one of the issues is a tax appeal. Is that something that anyone wants to talk about in non-public?
Well, we can't discuss it in public.
I understand that, but if there's no board member who wants to discuss this and they're okay with the FYI, then we don't have to go into non-public.
Well, there are a couple of things on there that we do need a discussion and a decision.
I think we should, right.
Okay.
Yeah. So this was under E, and so I have a motion. Do I still have your second? All those in favor say aye.
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 Yes.
It's unanimous.
Yes.
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 Yes.